Hi, everybody. Years ago, I wasn't very good at washing dishes with family members. There's an interesting story that my parents had us, my sister and I, washing dishes together, and we were small enough that we had to stand on chairs, and she washed and I dried, and no one could ever understand why her speed at washing really bothered me, and so I kept complaining until the time came that I ended up on the ground and my sister had delivered a very well-placed punch on me, and so I really hesitated ever washing dishes with other people. And then a few years ago, our dishwasher broke down and we had to get a new one, and my wife and I made the decision that we would go about 6 months without a dishwasher and we would just wash dishes together. And it had been 20 years since we had to do that. We always had a dishwasher, it seemed, and this was a very interesting exercise because a dishwasher was so convenient. It got our dishes clean, it saved us time, but then all of a sudden we realized something, that without the dishwasher we could still wash dishes. We could still spend time together. We could still enjoy each other's company. The dishwasher wasn't necessary. The dishwasher is convenient. I wanted to begin a new series this week because it's very pressing with what's going on in the world, and I want to begin by asking the question, why is the church a building? Oftentimes when we think of church, we think of a church building. We think of people going to church, and there are wonderful events that happen, and I understand why we miss that so much, because when a lot of us can gather in one place and mutually encourage each other and sing the praises of Jesus Christ, there are just such wonderful blessings there. And the church is a building. But I want to suggest to you something that is perhaps missed, and maybe something is thought of in such a way for so long that we forget that it's not really the case. The church is a building, but it's not a building made with human hands. And while the church building is a great convenience, and I encourage us to use them and I encourage us to participate in them, the church building is not necessary for God to be in the midst of his people. The church building is not necessary for God to do work among his people. And the church building is not necessary for God to do work from his people. In fact, Stephen said in Acts chapter 7 and verse 48, the Most High, that being God, does not dwell in houses that are made by hands. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 18 and verse 20, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. So why is the church a building? We want to just caution people before getting too upset. And I know it's difficult to go without our usual conveniences, but there are so many things that God can still do even though our buildings might be closed. The church is still in existence. I grew up in a church plant, and what that means is you don't have a church building for a while, but we're still the church. And maybe we can't meet with 100 people, but we can still meet with 5 people. And Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am also. We don't have to be isolated just because we can't meet at the building. We don't have to be not encouraged just because we don't meet at the building. But we can make arrangements, like the Apostle Paul did, to still be the church of God, even though there's not a building called the church. It's interesting that the Apostle Paul never had the convenience of a church building like we do, but he still managed to be effective. My wife and I did buy a dishwasher eventually. We liked the convenience. There's nothing wrong with the convenience. And one day we're going to get the convenience again of a building, and we're going to celebrate again with more people than we can right now. But the church is a building, just not in the way that people conceptualize it today. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 16 and verse 18, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And the gates of Hades or the gates of hell will not prevail against it. The church is a building. It's being built by the hands of Jesus Christ himself. God does not dwell, God is not confined to a physical building. So why is the church a building? The church is a building because Jesus Christ is building us up together. And whether we meet in groups of 100 or whether we meet in groups of 2, we're able to accomplish everything that Jesus Christ wants us to accomplish because he's in the midst of us. Thank you, everybody.